Croeso and welcome to Beyond the Track podcast. My name is James, the coach, commentator, lecturer and endurance runner.
And I'm Jenny Nesbitt, GB distance runner.
In this podcast, we're going to be going beyond the track, talking to the very best athletes and sports professionals in Wales and beyond.
We hope you leave better informed and a little bit more inspired about running and athletics.
So welcome back to Beyond the Track, and we're going to go through a bit of a roundup of what happened over the weekend. But first, Jen, what happened over your weekend?
I've had a busy weekend, logging the miles again, comes with no surprise. 16 and a half yesterday, so that was probably one of my longest ever runs, so I'm quite pleased about that.
Very nice. I can't quite match that on the land, but I can on the bike. I did the dragon ride yesterday, 133 miles, 215 kilometres, 8.5 hours. But I tell you what, showcasing the best Welsh scenery, which kind of takes my mind back to the Castles relays that we both took part in. I love events that kind of show what an amazing place Wales is, where we live. But it was abroad in terms of race results in a very nice part of the world in Switzerland. The Athletica Geneva meet, the EPA meet, where a lot of athletes go out for fast times. And we had a kind of mixed results there. Yeah. Great to see a season's best for Joe Breyer, 46.4 in the 400 metres. Charlie Cavell was the fastest Welshman over there, 46.32. Slightly disappointment, Evan Blackman, he's run 45.80 this year. He was over a second slower than that with 46.94. So he'll be looking to go a little bit faster. And then looking to go a little bit faster probably was double Commonwealth Games athlete Hannah Breyer, 52.82, consistent, but I think she would have liked to have gone a bit faster. And Tess McHugh also followed home in sixth place in 53.2. But it opens the question about the relays at the Commonwealth Games, and definitely that mixed relay, Jen. How do you think they're looking at the moment? It's
an exciting prospect, and I think if they can all kind of continue to progress this year, there's no reason why they can't send a really strong team next year to the mixed relay at the Con Games.
And we've got others to throw in the mix, the likes of Izzy Boffey, Darcy Costlet. But again, in terms of being consistent, but probably we need the men to be consistently in the 45-second mark. And potentially we need the women to be breaking 52 seconds, to be really competitive in the comedies.
Absolutely. But we've got the likes of Justin Davies, the 800-metre runner.
Yes.
He could drop down and he could be competitive in the 400 too, I reckon.
That'd be fun. And also there was action over 3 3/4 laps abroad, wasn't there?
Absolutely there was. We had action in Germany and France. We had Piers Copeland, one of the athletes on our performance programme. He was over in Germany and he finished 6th in a season best of 3:37.01. Again, not quite a selection standard for the commies, but it's a season's best, and I'm sure he'll be looking to kind of progress off that this year. Whereas in France, we had Carrie Hughes in the 1500 metres again. This was her season opener, and I think can be a bit of a rusty kind of time if you're kind of opening up your season, especially over something like the 1500 metres. But she finished 11th in her race in a time of 4:14.5. So I'm sure she will continue to progress over the summer.
Yeah, she fed back to the team. She wasn't ultimately happy. No athletes are ever really happy, are they? But I think both of those athletes will be looking to take significant chunks off those in their forthcoming races. But home, there was the British Milers Club meeting in Loughborough. Some good performances by our developing athletes.
Absolutely, yeah. There was a large Welsh contingent in Loughborough this weekend, actually. And Thomas Loynes, he was 6th in the 800-metre D race in 1:51.88. Just outside his personal best. But he was pushed all the way last weekend by Lewis Starr, and he's obviously in the shape of his life because he celebrated a new PB of 1:52.55 to finish 3rd in the 800-metre G race. So him and amongst a lot of other athletes are really developing well this year. Yeah,
and I think Lewis Codling also ran 2:11, the young Newport athlete, for a lifetime best as well. So great seeing that depth in the British Milers Cup when you're talking about, Ds and F races being that fast. So great to see. It wasn't just the track. We had some great performances in the mountain as well. The Skyrun Airy, the Snowdon Sky Race as well. So this iconic kind of running in the mountains. So the women's sky race was won by Wales's Kat Wayne Hobson, competing in 7 hours and 59 minutes. That's phenomenal. Men's winner was England's Ed Brewster in 5 hours and 51 minutes. The highest Welsh finisher was Craig Lowe, 4th place, 6 hours and 35 minutes. And then the 14 Peaks Ultra Race was won by Welsh athletes Lizzie Richardson in 8 hours, 12 minutes. And that performance puts her in line for a Great Britain vest as well. She was 9th overall with all the men around her as well. That's a phenomenal performance. 8 hours, 12 minutes. And that performance puts her in line potentially for a Great Britain vest. Great to see. And also the women's Copper Sky Trail race was won in 4 hours, 14 minutes by Bethan Logan ahead of the first Welsh finisher. That was Anna Buckingham, in 4 hours and 48 minutes. But it wasn't just the seniors. We also had juniors as well. The Junior Inter-Counties Mountain Running Championships in Cothla Pike. North Wales athletes, strong performances across there. I think the top Welsh finishers were in the under-15 category were Ellis Owen Harry, and in the women's race it was Holly Worth of Menai Track and Field, and loads of good performances in there. So good to see our youngsters developing, and I'm sure we'll see them in some of those longer senior races in the future. But that's a roundup, Jen, of the action of the weekend that's just been. I am absolutely delighted to have one of Wales's and Great Britain's greatest ever athletes in the studio, Mr. Colin Jackson. Welcome to the second episode of Beyond the Track. We're delighted it's you. I would say in the hot seat, but it's not the hot seat, Colin. Welcome.
Thank you very much indeed. When you said that, I started looking behind me now. I was thinking, who's he talking about here? But no, it's lovely to be here, of course.
No, easily one of the greatest. When you look down at your record, in Great Britain vests, you earned 22 medals. It was 12 golds, 9 silvers and 1 bronze. But more importantly, in the Red of Wales, it was 2 gold and 2 silvers. From that illustrious career, what stands out most from you, Colin?
Do you know, it's really difficult to actually decide what stands out. And I'll tell you the real reason for that is because every single season, you're setting yourself a goal and an objective. And when it didn't matter what championships was your goal and objective, you just want to achieve it. And so as somebody who always kind of set goals for the particular years, I just literally embraced them all. And I loved whether it was, a European indoors, a World Indoors, a Commonwealth Games, a World Championship. I'm just taking it all, just loving this whole ride. So it's really difficult to specifically point out one direct one because I just enjoyed them all.
Not a world record winning a world championships in Stuttgart?
Well, because that was the goal was to win the world championships.
Yes. Okay.
That was good, but that was just for the season.
Yeah.
I wanted to break the world record during that season as well. It all happened in the same kind of race, which kind of made it a little bit easier, which means I didn't have to focus on anything else. But yeah, that was great. And I always say to people, it's great setting history in your sport. Really is. But also, it's just your PB, isn't it? Right? Let's make it basic.
Your PB was the world record, though,
right? And every race you want to do. We're all sitting here, and you'd always want to break your PB. You always want to break your PB.
True.
And it's irrelevant what it is. It's yours. It belongs to you. So you want to get your very best out of you. So for me, like I say, and I know James is so trying to get me to say that. He's going, you're going to say this, Colin, if it really is the last thing you say. But I generally believe that I've always been kind of obsessed about achieving my goals of the year. And as long as I do that, I'm going to be happy.
Love that.
Did you write them down before you started the year? Did you have a list? You were like, right, we need to go through all of these. We need to tick, 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 tick.
Well, coach was more like that, more than me. Malcolm Allen, my coach, was somebody who would say to me always medals were more important than anything else. So I really was happy that responsibility laid on his head, in that sense. So I would just, I just do what I was told. Hard to believe, I know. But I literally would just do what I was told. And when he said, this is what we're going to try and do. And then we plan out, the whole season was planned in front of us by October. So in October, end of October, before I even started winter training, I knew where I was going to be running in June, July, August, and what the attention was going to be. And I think I was also fortunate that I really never had to think about qualifying because I knew I'd qualify, if that makes sense. Because I know that's a lot of pressure because there's lots of people around in my team at the time who didn't have that luxury and had to work for qualifying. So I know that's tough. But also I could plan, literally we could plan to the final of that major event, which again is a huge luxury to go like, okay, you're going to be in the final anyway, so let's just work the schedule towards that. Yeah, so I do appreciate that I was fortunate, but also I left the responsibility on him.
So many incredible moments, right, in your whole career. But let's go right back to the start.
Okay.
When did you first step onto a track? Do you remember it?
I was really young when I won my first trophy for running. I was 4.
Wow.
And I ran in Maidy Stadium, which is an old stadium down the track. You know, for a certain generation, you'll actually remember running on it, right? And it was an old cinder track, and it was the Cardiff and District Schools Championships, and I was 3rd in the 60 metres. And I was a 4-year-old, and I was up against all 5-year-olds there, but I was the kid there, the little one with a little afro. Those days. And yeah, and I remember coming 3rd, and I was a bit disappointed that I finished 3rd, but I did my best, and it was all good. And then we had this big presentation ceremony that happened down in the parade in Cardiff there. And I remember my dad was saying to me, right, when you go up on that stage, you shake your hands with your right hand and you receive the reward with your left, right? So you shake your right, receive with the left. And I was like, okay. And then when they called my name up and I was literally going up on the stage, as I went up on the stage, I was literally like this. Straight with the right hand. And I was like, okay, there you go. Yeah. So, yeah, it was pretty early.
And then you joined an athletics club?
I didn't join athletics club straight away because I used to do other sports. I used to do cricket, I used to do basketball, I used to do rugby. So I really wasn't that intense with athletics until I was about 15.
Okay.
And that's when I really was, well, you could say I was like in a club. But up until then, I was just doing all sorts of sports and loving it. Yeah.
Do you think there was like a lot of value then in doing all these other sports growing up before you like specialised in your event? And do you think that's like led to the longevity of your career and the success that you've had?
Yeah, I think playing as a child is huge. And so my auntie would certainly describe everything I did as play. But I would now, on reflection, realise it's just like being in a jungle, right? Where you're a kid, you're just running wild. I mean, I was... where we used to live, there was loads of woods there and streams. There was rivers and streams everywhere. And all summer, literally, we were out climbing the trees, jumping off them. We used to play jump in streams. So you'd have restricted run up and you'd be launching yourself off the banks to go over these different streams. And if that's not training for long jumping, well, there's nothing going to be at that age. But of course, you don't think about it. You're just throwing yourself across there to see how far you could go. So that sort of play for me was really important to giving me some sort of foundation for the real professionals and to take over and then just apply everything that you've got naturally just because you've been playing from a kid. Yeah.
So athletics events-wise, that's interesting. It brings us on to a bit of long jump. You were a pretty decent long jumper as a youngster, and also a bit of multi-events as well. Take us through that kind of development through different events. Yeah. Obviously, playing outside, great. But how important was it to do more than just one athletics event at a younger age? Yeah,
I think again, it's finding your sweet spot, finding what you enjoy most, because athletics, on reflection, right? And let's talk about. I'm going to go reflection. Is hard.
Yeah. We're not disagreeing, Jen,
right?
Yeah.
It's hard.
We agree.
Now, when you're 13, 14, 15, 16, you have no idea how hard it's going to be. Right? You have no clue about that. So as I say, so it's really good when you're that age to do loads of different events and find the one you enjoy the most. Because if you enjoy it the most, you're going to work harder at it. And so for me, that was going to be the reason why I'd say try and see what you can do. I mean, to be honest, my favourite event was 200-metre running. I was never going to be that great at it. I mean, I never lost a 200-metre race, but I stopped when I was about 20, so that's the reason why I didn't. But again, it's like what you enjoy and then what you can work at, and that will allow you to get good at it ultimately.
And interestingly, you talked about obviously doing multi-sports as well. And I remember reading and hearing you were a very, very good cricketer as well. Yeah. But I think it was not being selected for a team and maybe realising that in athletics, like, you almost get yourself selected. As you said, you're in control almost of those selections. Yeah,
that is really important. And was going to be really important. I was a little bit, how would I describe myself as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old? Miserable. Yeah, I think that's an easy way. That's just to say that. But I loved sport. I loved playing, right? And I use the word playing because it was just fun to do, right? So I just loved playing. And then when I was I was good enough to play for Glamorgan schools as a county, and I had the opportunity to go for trials for Wales. And I was the captain of our team. There were so many people in and around me that got selected for Wales, and I missed out. And I couldn't understand why I missed out, because I'm better than all these guys. And I didn't understand or really... It really, as a 16-year-old, well, 15 at the time, 15-year-old, it doesn't make any sense, you know. And I just felt, well, there's only one reason for that, and I thought it was blatant racism, to be honest. And it is at that stage where you think to yourself, do you know, I'm not going to deal with this all my life, so I'm going to put myself in a position where I select, as you said, James, I select myself. And if you cross the line first, it's pretty hard to be ignored, right? So for me, that's where I was like, I'm going to go to a sport where I see people like me who are achieving, but also being celebrated for their success. So that's what steered me again as a 50-year-old towards athletics as a sport, because it was just a brilliant, honest place to be.
And it steered you pretty well. It was age 19, going to the World Juniors, taking that gold medal in the same year, taking a medal in the Commonwealth Games. Yeah. Was that a roller coaster for, still a teenager?
It was an interesting one, because I was selected for the World Juniors for long jump hurdles and a 4x1 relay. Yeah. But I got injured 3 weeks before. So when I arrived at the World Juniors, they were like, well, you're not long jumping, obviously, because you haven't done any prep for it, and you can't be named in the 100 4x1 squad because you're not running at this moment. And they literally left the decision very late for me to do the hurdles. And so I ran the heat and I was okay. And they went, okay, you can do that. So luckily I won it. Right. Luckily I won that. And I came back home, and the first thing coach said to me was, well, it looks like you're not going to be long jumping anymore, because you've just run the second fastest time ever as a junior, and it'd be a little bit odd for me to change you into a long jumper. So let's leave the long jump. And I was like, oh, I was a little bit because I love long jumping.
So did you ever get to long jump again, or was that it?
I did. Ooh. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But then I went to the Commonwealth Games, obviously, and absolutely loved my experience at the Commonwealth Games, because it was only 10 or 12 days later. It was very short time between each. And I loved getting the Welsh vest on, and it being in Edinburgh as well. There was lots of Welsh people there, which was helping us through that whole process. And then I didn't quite complete the year because I got injured. At the end of the year, just for the European Championships in Stuttgart in 86. And I was a bit cheesed off with it. But you don't realise I was still a kid, I was 19. And I was running on the circuit. I was doing these championships. And my body wasn't ready for that genuine onslaught. And such an event that is so highly skilled and stressful on a young body, I mean, they don't even run them nowadays over 3'6" when you're 18, 19. They wait until you're a little bit older to get you over 3'6". I was doing them from 17, Wow. So it takes a lot on your body. So I kind of suffered a little bit from that in the early stages of my career. But I did have a go at long jump again. After I did a lot of other stuff in athletics, and I was all right at this stage, a couple of titles behind me, I decided I'm going to go back to long jump. And in 1998, I was getting ready for the European Championships in Budapest. And I decided in the winter that I was going to do long jump and high hurdle at those championships. And in May, I was on a warm weather training trip in May. And I was long jumping. And I went up, came off the board, and I landed in the pit badly. And I really did my ankle in like this. No. And the coach wasn't very happy, because of course he never wanted me to long jump anyway, but he was doing what he was told, which was coach me to long jump. And then literally, as I limped out of the pit, he looked at me, he said, 1 gold medal is better than 2 fourth places. Yeah. So I thought, here at the end of my long jumping career then. So I never even had the opportunity
Never
again.
got
And
that.
I wasted the whole winter because I did the full winter of long jump preparation, ready, to take the Welsh record I was looking for at that time. Which belonged to
Lee
Lynn
Davis's, He
was doing it.
He'd be more than happy. He never got to jump. You know, we're in obviously the home of Lynn here on Kincoy campus. So he'd be delighted that never happened.
It
Colin,
never happened
so,
in the end.
We have to talk about the Olympics.
Yeah.
You've been to 4 Olympic Games. You've won a silver medal.
Yeah.
And you've come close to some medals a
Yeah.
few times as
Yeah.
well. But kind of what happened on those days? Like, which one's the most meaningful?
Yeah, I mean, 88, obviously, my very first Olympic Games. I'm 21 and I was in Asia. First time I'd been to Asia and I was just loving this whole experience, you know. And I went there with that whole ambition of bringing home the silver and thinking, well, in 4 years' time, I'll be the gold medalist. So I'm only 21, so, you know, I'll definitely do it by 25. And it was fine. And I loved it. Loved that genuinely, that whole experience. And then 4 years later was so exciting. When you arrive in a season when you're world number one and you go into unbeaten and you're going to Olympic Games and with a big smile because nothing can go wrong, right? And even to the extent, I was so confident that nothing was going to go wrong that I sent my therapist, who was looking after me, massage therapist, back home after training camp. Because once I'd done the training camp, I'm not doing anything between that and first round, and nothing can happen between there, so you can go home. So I sent him back home. And then unfortunately, I ended up pulling my left oblique in the second round. And that literally just finished my opportunity of taking that gold medal. And I was distraught. I was absolutely distraught because I realized that the purple patch you have in your life, especially in our sport, is a very limited time. And when we're talking about Olympic cycles, that was it. So 92 was a huge lesson for me to learn about myself. And if I really love this sport, generally love the sport, or whether I was doing it because there was nothing else for me to do. But I love the sport, knowing that this is not the best of me. People need to see the best of me. I do not quit under these circumstances. And then 4 years later, I got to Atlanta, and unfortunately, I was injured. I had a knee problem really early in the year. And in May, I needed an operation, really. But because the Olympic Games were so early in Atlanta, there was no way I could have my knee operation and then be back in time for the season. So literally, I had to ride that Olympic Games through. And I remember when I was so annoyed because I couldn't be bothered. I literally couldn't be bothered. And then when I realised I finished 4th, and I really could have got on the roster. If I'd have tried, I'd have got on the roster, but I couldn't. I just had no interest. Because if it was gold or nothing, and at that stage, nothing is just as good as, you know, that. So I'd rather nothing. But on reflection, it'd be like, oh, nice to pick up another little medal. It'd be nice.
just a little Olympic medal.
Yeah, but I kind of ignored that. And then in 2000, I had a quad injury all season, which held me back again. And that was really annoying because, of course, I was coming off the year before where I was world champion. So I knew I had the capabilities of delivering the gold medal again there. And I just got injured. My quad was absolutely wrecked. And again, it was bad attitude, literally. And I remember team physio, Jared Hartman at the time, was also looking after me personally. And he said to me, are you going to go to bed before the day of the Olympic final, or are you going to go to bed on the day of the Olympic final? And I said to him, I really don't care. So I'll go to bed when I'm tired. And I didn't go to bed till about 1:30, 2 in the morning, and then got up and to run the final. I was really like, this is like not me. I'm not interested. I'm not in it. And it just tells you the power of your mind.
Yeah.
Because I still really could have run much better if I'd have focused. But when you really have that sense of, I don't care, then you can really lose yourself in it.
Yeah, super interesting when you talk about, you know, those Olympic Games in Barcelona where I remember watching that 13.1 where you literally shut off about 3-4 hurdles out. Talk about being in that absolute purple patch.
Yeah.
But then you didn't do the same process of warm-up, did you, for the next round? It's interesting to be in that amazing shape.
Yeah.
I remember, obviously, you know, hearing about Malcolm's frustration with that, and it was almost just it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then obviously then, would you go back, because often you talk to people about, you know, going back and rerunning something, not rerunning the race, but going back to speak to Colin before that next round and saying, Colin, warm up properly, because the significance of this, the injury, then into Olympic final, which Mark McCoy won
my
in
training partner.
13.11, so slower than you cruising through those last 4 hurdles. So would that be a moment in your career to go back to? Potentially.
I was lucky enough that I did go back to it in the World Championships.
Yes.
So it was the 1 year, but I had to take a whole year to go through the process directly to not make those genuine mistakes.
But that Olympic moment, would you go back?
The Olympic moment, you of course, you'd have to go back.
Yes.
Because it's a moment in your life where at the time, you don't really appreciate it, but on reflection, you realise the importance of that. And so for me, for sure. I always laugh about this. I was so sure I was winning the gold medal. Wow. There was no way I could not win the gold medal. There's no way. And there is no way I would make a mistake as happened in the second round, because it's never happened before. Even if I've not warmed up before, I've always been able to amble through a race.
Yeah.
So I'd never, ever had that scenario to deal with. So even though I was saying I was like, I should have warmed up, and yes, I should have warmed up properly.
Yeah.
I should have warmed up properly. And then part of that, I think, he'll hate me saying this, but Malcolm should have been a bit more forceful to make sure that I warmed up as well properly, instead of giving me wise words, which he did. Told me not to be so complacent, because complacency will bite you on your backside. And I just laughed. And the reason why I laughed was because it's never happened before.
Yeah.
So why should it happen today?
It's not going to happen.
You know, a semi-final and final I'll warm up for. But I only need to get through to the semi-final and final. That's all I need to do.
Yeah.
So I can just, you see what I can do, so I'll just amble through.
Shape-wise, were you in better shape in 92 than 93 in training? Like, because that if that Olympic final had gone, you running full gas for that Olympic gold, what time would you have thrown down, do you reckon?
Oh, it would have been in the 80s easily, But, it would have been in the 80s. I remember Kevin Young's coming up to me, who did the 400 metre hurdles.
Spider-Man,
Kevin Young broke the world record for the 400 metre hurdles in there. And he said to me, what, you didn't want to break the world record, do you, today, right? Is that why you're assembling through your rounds, right? Yeah. And I just laughed at Kevin, because deep down, you know what you can do.
That's what I mean,
and all I wanted to do was my best performance, ultimately. Yeah. And I knew what I was capable of. But the reason why I say it was hard to say, James, because I think I was carrying a lot in 93 from the mistakes of the Olympics the year before. So there's always a lot of tension around, a lot of pressure around me. And I was feeling it, you know. So I can't really say if I was in better shape or in 93 or 92, because 92's the 91, hang on, I'll get the dates right. Because the 91 season wasn't a great season. And so my foundation didn't look so good. So if I compared 92 to 91, I was in much better shape.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if I was in much better shape in 93 to 92. Because 92 was a cracking season as well.
And that relationship with Malcolm, long standing the whole of your athletics career. Yeah. When he saw you or spoke to you at a presentation, wasn't it, at the age of 14? Talk us through a little bit about that relationship. You've already given us a little bit of insight. But anyone that knows Malcolm or has met Malcolm, he is very straight talking.
Yeah.
A very old school coach.
100%.
But an amazing athletics mind.
Yeah.
And real motivator, wasn't he?
Yeah, I love him. Yeah. No, I absolutely love him to bits. I mean, he was like a second dad to me. So I can describe that. Knew him, first of all, I was petrified of the man. And I think
I love the way you're laughing.
I was properly petrified of him in the first place. And I remember when they introduced me to him, like, this is Malcolm, he's like head coach and blah, 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 and national coach of Wales. And I was like 14, first of all, of course. And I didn't say anything. I just looked at this man, and he literally looked me up and down like that. And he said, I've seen your performances. And I was like, just say nothing. And I didn't say anything. I just literally stood there like an idiot. And he must have thought, oh, and I hope his running is better than his talking at this moment in time. But yeah, so I was really kind of nervous because he was like a guru of our sport.
Yeah.
And then the people he'd already coached to gold medals, Jan Akibu, he's already coached a world record holder and an Olympic champion. And then, like, he's going to talk to me. I mean, why is he going to talk to me? So I was always kind of in awe of him, courtesy of that. I soon wore off in that sense. And yeah, and we always had a great relationship from there on in. And he's always been, what did I say about Mark? He's always, he always likes, you mentioned him being old school, right? So he always says, right, I'm the coach, you're an athlete, this is the person who does your races, this is the physio, this is the doctor. So he doesn't get involved in anything outside his realm. He'll chat to people about it to make sure that things are in order, but he's not going to get involved. And I remember one time we were doing the European Championships in Munich, and like my agent came down, my race agent came into the warm-up, and literally Malcolm nearly took his shoe off and beat the living daylights in to get out. He goes, no, this is not for where you count money. You go away. Yeah. This is for us to prepare for the competition. And I was like, ooh. And I properly loving that the coach was telling off an agent like that. I loved it. But yeah, that's the way we were.
And with his coaching style, what was it that you really liked about it? What was it that led to this success?
Where can we say this? He never kind of glossed over stuff. There was never, if it was good, he would say nothing. And seriously, he'd say nothing. And if it was bad, you got it. Okay. Right? So you knew. But it was never a personal attack. No. It was just like, this is the... Because I remember one time challenging him, not in a bad way. I said to him, you haven't said anything all day. Like, you haven't said a word. He said, if I have something to say, I'll say it. If I've got nothing to say, what am I saying? And I kind of, and that...
You take a step back at that point, you're like, all right.
Well, okay, so things must be okay then. If I've got something to say, I'll say it. Because after every single run we were doing, as we were walking back, he loved his cars. And every time we were walking back, he was talking about, I've got to get a new clutch. And the fender of this is not going well. And I'm thinking about changing the colour of the car. And I was like, did you not just see me run? like, why are we talking this nonsense? And so, so when you kind of get to know him in that sense, you'll understand that. But when he needs to coach, he's on it, and he's got every trick you can imagine to get it into your brain, every single one. I think that's the skill, and I think because his background was teaching, he knew how to teach. Yeah, basically.
So talking about the cars is probably part of his coaching style as well.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I don't know. He wouldn't do that with everybody, I know. And I used to watch how he kind of worked with other people. And when he was working, with other people, I was seeing like, oh, well, he never kind of said that with me, or he never did that with me. And then when you ask him, he said, well, you don't need it. So I'll do it when it's needed, but you don't.
Mark McCoy joined the group. Through your insistence, which Malcolm was a little bit kind of against. Mark McCoy was the Commonwealth champion that beat you when you were 19, and then obviously went on to take that gold medal. But to have that, kind of someone pushing you in training, was that something that you needed to be out of that comfort zone as well?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Mark was just a good asset for me to have alongside because we had the same focus. We had the same kind of way that we approach stuff, and I think that was really important as I was progressing. And like every single day in training, I'd have the better of Mark in all sorts of training events. And then there'd be times where Mark would have always the better of me. He was always stronger than me physically. He was faster than me on the flats, So we married up these kind of good things together, and we were already good friends, but we developed the scenario where we are number 1 and 2 in the world.
Wow.
And you cannot get any better than having a number 1 and 2 in the world training with each other and their mates. And we really knew straight away that if we were competing against everybody in the field. Yeah. So it doesn't matter, if you're in my race, you're going to get it like everybody else is going to get it. And that's his mindset as well. So that was always acceptable. And him winning the Olympic Games in 92, I think, made a huge difference for me in 93 because I realised that everything we did in training was correct. The only thing that went wrong was me.
Yes.
Not the training, not the prep. All we did was spot on because he delivered. Yeah. So I knew then for the following year, all I need to do is follow the process and do my thing. And you'll be all right because he did it. So you should do it.
And following on from your career and into your retirement, you became a coach yourself, coaching the likes of Rhys Williams. What was that journey like? Why did you want to do it?
Yeah, I think one of the things for me was understanding that people have put time out for me to be successful. Not just, Malcolm, great as a coach, but, your friends, your family members, all the doctors, the physios, you name it. I mean, I don't have to tell you, right? There's loads of people.
Team.
It's a massive team.
Yeah.
And you have the luxury of just doing the performance business of it, right? But they're doing a lot of hard work as well. So I was thinking you always got to be the occasion where you give something back, and you help. You gain so much knowledge and wisdom through your athletic career. And if it's just basic stuff about how to travel, around the world and race after you traveled, when you arrive in something, what you need to do, nutritionally, physically, whatever, you should always be able to give that back. And so for me, what's important is aligning myself to be able to be open enough to make that happen. And I think learning from Malcolm as well was great, because he was always open-ended. So he never thought he knew everything about anything. And he would literally encourage you to speak to some other coaches to try and get a real holistic vision of your sport and your event, and you as well, yourself. And then come back, obviously, to and put on the table, we discuss and we see where we go. So I kind of liked to adapt in that way of coaching as well.
There's a huge demand for coaches in Wales. What's your advice, Colin, for people thinking about going into coaching?
Come on. Come on board. It's the best thing ever. It's the best thing ever. It's also one of the things, because, you're a part of a journey of young people's lives. You're helping fulfill dreams of young people. Surely you've got to feel good about doing that. I mean, if you don't, you really need to sort yourself out, right? In this sense, so you want to be very much part of people's journeys in that way. But if there's always words, I would also remember it's their journey, not yours, as a coach in that sense. You have yours, but they have theirs. Don't live your dreams through them, right? Don't do it that way at all. So be involved in that sense, stay committed and potentially don't be fearful of aligning yourself to some of the top athletes who've been there and competed. Yeah. Because that's important as well, because they're bringing something to that storyboard that you may not necessarily have. They will know what it's like to be in an Olympic Village or at the Commonwealth Games and what it's like and the distractions that it may be. You as a coach, you may not know that. I think I'm lucky in that, when you coach people that got it. And I say they understand what they want to achieve and where they want to go, and they've already fully committed themselves to their sport and to you. And that's really important as a coach as well, because you don't want to feel like your time's been wasted. Yeah. And so that interaction always comes, because again, it's that two-way. I've got to listen, I've got to see, and you've got to be honest, because otherwise, if you're not honest in that sense, the performance will expose, and then your integrity is involved. Because if you're telling an athlete, you look amazing, you're going to be doing this, that, and the other, and then when you walk away, you're going, in their wildest dreams. I mean, that's shocking. They got no chance. And then, of course, guess what happens? Yeah, they are shocking, and they have got no chance. Well, where's your credibility? Yeah. So you've got to keep yourself credible as a human being in that sense. And what you see, you've just got to be honest. You don't have to be brutal. Mm-hmm. There's lots of ways of saying things are not going so well. Right? There are many ways of saying that, and you could just make that honest appraisal and just make it work, and then make the changes. You got to be skillful enough as well to understand when you say that, have that conversation to make the changes and where things have gone wrong or why they've gone wrong. So again, it's that whole process of what's necessary to deliver high-level coaching with high-level athletes.
And for context, Andrew was a former world indoor 60-metre hurdles champion, and he looked like he was getting into great shape. I know. And I can see like the drop of body language there, because as a coach, it's so frustrating. It looked like he was getting towards the best shape of his life in Olympic year. Yeah. How tough is that as a coach when you get almost there with an athlete?
It was just awful. Yeah. That's the only way I can say. It doesn't matter how awful you feel as the coach. You can imagine what he felt like.
Oh, yeah.
Mortified. I mean, I watch him doing the winters, and we did most of our winter, the early part of the winter here in Cardiff.
Yeah.
And weather wasn't the best. It was awful. It
That's
was
being polite.
awful, right? And I remember being like out in Lander Fields, like, you know, full on with jackets and my muddy as hell. And I've got that umbrella, but he's running in that business. So however I felt, he was, you know, multiply that up. Especially when he was most probably on for the season of his life, you know, and that was happening because we made some fundamental changes. We had a lot of change in his attitude, in the way that he wanted to do things, and we just made training fun. I'll be honest, you know, some of the things I would jump in with him and try to be competitive and not quite as competitive as you can imagine. I'm in my 50s, for God's sake, nearly 60. When we're talking about my 50s, and so you kind of wind your athletes up a little bit like that and go, look at this old man, just a metre off of here, sunshine. You need to pull your finger out, you know. So, you know, making it again fun and making our sport fun. Going back to the real reasons why you're competing, then brings things alive. And he was just, as I say, just on his way, and
I know.
breaks a foot, and what can you do? What can you do?
Mindset then is such an important part of our sport, and personally I think it's just as important as the physical. Over your career, you've obviously had a lot of injuries, you've had a lot of setbacks. How have you dealt with those, and how have you kind of managed to kind of get through them to then perform at such a high level again and go on to bigger and better things?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's a reason I always say to all the youngsters, anybody I involve, and I call everybody young because, like, you know, I'm an old man. So, so everybody, all the youngsters that I chat with, I always remind them the reasons why they're doing the sport. So take yourself back to your very beginning. Why do you do athletics? Why did you take it up? It's because you loved it, right? And you will do anything to get back to your very best, you know? So always have that in your heart when you have the biggest of injury woes. You just remember, you know what, I'm going to take my time, I'm going to get back because I love this sport. And if you have the innate ability, you will always get back. You know, you will return. But you've got to have faith in yourself. You've got to have faith in the people around you that with their help, you're going to get back. And with their support, you're going to get back. You've just got your bit to do. And so it is tough. Of course, I've been through it. You know, I remember one biggest Achilles tendon injury I had in 2001, which is one of the things that really set me back. And I thought I was going to retire due to that injury. And then literally, I went to the doctors in Germany, and they kind of sorted me out after 8 months. And I was like, oh, actually, I still want to do this athletic malarkey. I'm not going to give it. I still want to do this. I remember when he told me everything was good, we did all the tests, and the Achilles was amazing. I was like, and I left the clinic, and I walked out on the street, and I burst into tears. It was such a huge relief that I can come back, and I can do my thing, you know, and my body had allowed me just, you know, 2 years of blessings so I could really go out on my terms. Yeah. I felt that was really important. So I really was, I felt I was lucky in that scenario. But again, if you are injured, look for people to mentor you through that injury as well. Don't do it on your own. You know, find people you can talk to a lot about that, who are going to help your mind process. They can't help the physical bit. And to be honest, nor can you. Your body will heal when it heals, right? There's no fast route. You know, you can get your physios and uppers. They'll get you as fast as they can, but it's still down to your body. So don't think that it's going to be tomorrow, you know. But what can help is getting a good mentor who can help you through that and talk you through the processes and, again, make you understand why you're doing it.
So you've got the challenging parts of the sport, but you've also got like the high pressure environments you're going into, a Commonwealth Games, Olympics, the World Champs. Did you have any sort of help, direction, kind of going into those events and how you deal with that kind of heightened anxiety, excitement, all the emotions that come with it?
I think and I had a good training group. That's the way I would say it. Right? I had a very world-class training group that I could always rely on, who'd been through it, you know. And once you have that so close quarters to you, then you are, you know, you're rubbing shoulders with the very best, but then also you're articulating your process to somebody else in the group because they'll need to go through that same process at some stage. So it was generally a lovely environment for me to develop in and work within. And I think that I was really fortunate. That doesn't happen all the time, but I was really fortunate to be in there, and I could lean on them in that sense. And even when sometimes they were more successful than I was, they were still there supported. They literally been their success to support me through, you know, the deep hole that potentially I was in. And I guess that's another blessing. And learning from them all the time allowed me to go into these major championships full of confidence and belief. Yeah.
And when you experienced setbacks, what was your kind of motivation to get back out training again? Probably, you know, we've obviously touched upon 92 being one of the toughest. Yeah. And you're going back to training, and it's your training partner who's Olympic champion. Yeah. Still living in
my
house. Your mum.
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. Same house. Yeah. It wasn't easy, that actually.
No. But how do you process that, and how do you get back out there? Or was it literally, right, 93 is the year to show people?
Well, you're flat.
Yeah.
First of all, because, you know, I was 7th at the Olympic Games, and most people are happy you're 7th, right?
I'm delighted with 7th.
I'd have taken it.
Yeah.
Right? And I was mortified. But for me, again, I said, what I saw was the fact that Mark's Olympic champion, but he did all the work we're supposed to do. Yeah. And he becomes Olympic champion. So it's only me who's better him in virtually every element of training. All I need to do is do my thing. So the most frustrating thing about it was that the world champs was so far ahead. It had to go so long before I could actually, you know, show the world again, well, hang on, I am the real best of it. And he did well on that day. Thank the Lord he did well, because I think things would have been different if he was 3rd. Yeah. Because then I would have doubted lots of processes. But the fact that he won meant everything was right.
Yeah, reaffirmed it, yeah.
Everything was right.
Yeah.
It's just me.
You get confidence from that.
From that.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the biggest things that worked in my favour in that sense. But the frustrating thing was just there. And because Mark is the personality that he is, we all just cracked on. Nobody did anything or said anything. It was just like, yeah, we'll just crack on with whatever's necessary. Get in the gym, get down the track. And everybody, again, there's always somebody we're training with who's champions, Olympic champions, world champions we're training with as well. It just seems part of the game. You just get on with it, you know. But I said this innate fact of gratitude. I want to use the word gratitude because I was always grateful for being in the position I was in. Like, you know, because I saw people around me training just as hard who wasn't as successful. And I've got to be like really grateful that I was blessed with the genetics that I'm blessed with, you know, the ability to focus and switch on. Nothing like that you can take for granted. It's just like, in a way, God-given. And if you're the chosen one, boy, just be grateful that you can do this. So I had a lot of gratitude as well.
Was there also motivation from, you know, we were in a real British athletics golden period from Linford, Sally. Yeah. Did their success and their ability to go out there and do it, was that something that you kind of, fed off them as well?
Well, because I worked closely with all of them.
Yeah.
You know, Sal I knew from I was 15. So I've always threatened her to send her kids, because her kids run as well, right? The letters that she used to write me, right, in that sense. So I've got all those. People like John Ridgeon, I was pen pals, who was the CEO of World Athletics. You know, I got all the letters still. And I always think, I'm gonna just show your kids what you were like at 15, right? I didn't say that. So I was always around that. So it was lovely for us all to be developing at exactly the same time. You know, Linford used to come down here and train with us. Tessa Sanderson used to hang out with my family. So I had, you know, the top tier of people in my life regularly. So success nearly was the norm. Mm-hmm. Failing was like, what is this? What's happened? You know, so I was again. Yeah. It's that sense. I was lucky that I was in that environment. Yeah, not everybody has that.
No.
Yeah.
You weren't the only successful person in your family though, because your sister as well, a really good actress, she was in Casualty. Do you think that had an influence on like the direction you went in the sport as well, and someone to like inspire, motivate you?
Yeah, I think I always say to people, we're both in the same industry as well. It's about entertainment, isn't it? You know, sport is very much entertainment, and so I kind of love that fact. And you know, it's great. You walk down the street and you realise people recognise your sister more than you when you're just going out for dinners and all business, which is absolutely fine. And of course, when she was in Casualty, I mean, 13, 14 years she was in Casualty, so she was in people's living rooms for 14 years, every weekend. So she was quite well recognised, and it was always lovely to go out and see that people were appreciating her in her field and then me in my field, which is always good. But we've always really supported each other's careers in that sense. And I thought, it's just a huge blessing to have that. And then when we were growing up as well, if my career was going a little bit better than hers and hers was a little bit better than mine, you always got somebody to tap up for money, haven't you? Right? Oh, Sue, I need a car.
Can I help?
Can I have that, please?
I love it. We're in a real boom in athletics at the moment. The sport is growing, but obviously we're always continuing to try and grow and get better and better. How do you see the sport and where it's at, and what do you think might be the future of the sport?
Yeah, I think that we have. So let's take a moment, right, and appreciate. We've got the best sport on the planet. Football will try and claim one thing, right? I am telling you now, we have the best sport. Turn on the Olympic Games, billions of people are watching the Olympic Games. And if you ask them about the Olympic Games, they only talk about track and field predominantly. Swimming, try their best. Cycling, try their best. Gymnastics, it's track and field that people kind of love. And I think that's, as athletes, we've got to generally appreciate our global sport is a truly global sport. We touch people in ways that you would not ever even fathom in that sense. And when you travel the world, and luckily I've extensively traveled the world in different places in different ways, and when people ask you questions about your sport, and you think to yourself, well, how would you know that? Like, I went to Soweto, to one of the townships, when I was down in Soweto there, and I was chatting to some of the youngsters there, and they don't have access to Google and the internet and all that business the way that we have. And their parents were telling them stories handed down about what I'd achieved, and then they were kind of looking in, and I was like, how do you find out all this? They know who I am because I ran fast. So if our sport isn't incredibly blessing of us as athletes and us as athletes to participate in it, then we're in a bad state for us, right? So I think we're really in a good place as our sport, because it is generally global. And I think we should embrace that more and more and more, and keep giving out our good messaging, show youngsters ultimately that if you apply yourself, what you can do. Because lots of things that I did in athletics, I apply the same things now in my life today, and ultimately still pretty successful courtesy of that. So yeah, I'm always for that, always for that.
And you're pretty involved in sort of the commentating around the sport now and things like that. Do you think athletics at the moment gets enough coverage, or do you think it should be far more worldwide, far more accessible?
Hugely, I think we don't get enough. We don't get enough. Okay, if you look at our sport, lots of other sports are not like ours in the sense of, if you're male or female, you get celebrated exactly the same way. You look at our top women athletes in the top athletes in Britain are women. Right? There's no argument about it. But nobody goes, oh, the top athletes are women, because that's just the normal. Yeah. That's our sport. That's what we expect. And so if we kind of look about how our way touches people across the board, we are really on a level playing field. Mm-hmm. We don't need to forge anything between us all. We need to just connect everything together in that sense. And I've watched this through the whole of my career. I used to watch people celebrated because of their success, not because of their colour of their skin or because of their sexuality in that sense. It's just who they are, and their success. And this is wonderful about our sport. And I always say to people about, if the world was a little bit more like athletics, we'd live in a much better world. Right? You think of all the pressures and tensions, as you've mentioned, going into major championships. Do you ever hear of scraps?
Never.
And you can't get a more highly pressured situation for young people. Yeah. There's no scraps, right? It doesn't happen in that sense. And if it does, it's like a minuscule time that's happened and it goes and gets washed over. Can you imagine if the world worked in that way? What a world we'd live in, And so for me, this is the beauty of our sport. So lots of things, I say, we don't expose our sport enough to say how good it is. Yeah.
And talking about exposure as, an athlete yourself, then a coach and obviously a broadcaster as well. Yeah. any ways of breaking down some barriers or any new technologies that could be out there or coming out there that could help get the sport to a wider audience?
Yeah, one of the things for me is that we live in a world of technology, and you've got to embrace that to reach the bigger audience, right? It's a global audience. And, most of the people nowadays have phones in their hand in that sense. So I spent a lot of time in the winter with a good friend of mine developing an athletics app. And developing this app has been important for me because it's trying to connect our sport in every single way. It's called Track, Field and Life, which kind of summarizes me in a way, right?
Love that,
right?
love
Track,
that.
Field,
Write
and
that
life,
down, write
right?
that down, everyone.
And so what we want to do is just have that ability to connect everybody. So whether you're a charity that wants more people to run for them and represent them in the sport, whether you're a shoe brand that wants a little bit more exposure, or you're willing to be giving stuff out and you want to look at some of the athletes you potentially want to market with in that sense, whether you're an event and you want to tell people what your event is all about and how many world ranking points you may get for your event, things like this.
I like that.
It's creating something where athletes can have their own profiles, can talk all athletics, and unashamedly, because they're on some other social media platforms where I feel like you do your athletics and then people go, oh, I'm bored of that. Like, well, on this one, we want you to talk all athletics because we love athletics. It is us. So for me, this is why I wanted to spend a bit of time creating that. So it's a one-stop shop for our sport. And I just hope people will get on board and enjoy it. Treat it for what it is. Yeah, it's connecting our whole athletic family.
And you've shown it to a few of the younger athletes. I think one of the athletes, Yolo's, had a look at it. So what's their feedback? Because obviously it's younger generation who obviously they're much more tech savvy than we're ever be, Colin.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's their feedback and what's their does it tap into their kind of psyche?
Well, first thing Yolo said to me was, and forgive me, Yolo, for kind of exposing your... yeah. He goes, a lot of my mates who look at my social media, kind of, they just don't do athletics. So when I fill up my other social media with athletics, they just bored, right? Yeah. He said, but on here, I could put all my athletics on here and it's absolutely fine. I was like, yeah, because that's what I want you to do to be honest in that sense. But yeah, I mean, seeing the statistics, I think when he had a look at his statistics and he was looking at them going, oh, wow, because he saw them all in one place, and again, that's really important. And then adding to it, when he saw what he was ranked in the world of athletics, and he was 13,000 and something, and he was like, oh, okay. And I went, there are lots of athletes doing athletics, so that is not a bad figure. Yeah. You're going to get it further down, I'm sure, but at the moment, that's where you stand. And so all these little things, I think, can be kind of encouraging, because he'll watch it and you'll see, as he improves, you'll see his world ranking improve too. And sometimes, whatever your stimulation is to go out there and work hard, whether because he wants to improve his world ranking, we'll take it if it improves his athletic performance, for sure. And he keeps wearing that red vest, we'll be well happy.
Definitely. So, interesting. So now we've got to add to the list of things Mr. Jackson can do. So we've got app designer. Obviously, since your retirement in 2003, you've been on various TV shows. Yeah. You've been a writer of 3 books. Yeah. You've gone into coaching. What stands out that you didn't think you maybe would have enjoyed, or does it fill the hole of being an athlete or not, Colin?
Do you know, I'm giggling about that because it's true. I kind of put my shoulders like, oh God, if you'd have told me, right, when I was lining up for Stuttgart for the World Championship, you just froze time.
Yeah.
And the older version of me, this one now, goes and taps me on my back and goes, let me tell you what's going to happen to you in the next 26 years after you win this. Right? Just after you win this, let me tell you what's going to happen there. I would literally go, don't be stupid. At that 26-year-old, go, that ain't happening. No interest. I'm just doing this. What happens later, I have no clue and I don't care. But no, I'm not interested. And then that older one would look down at him and say, okay, I can assure you, you spend your life worrying. I was a worrier.
Yeah.
Just stop worrying. Life will be okay and you'll be fine. And if you could believe that, you'd be okay. And yeah, that's what I would have done. So I'd have never thought any of this was going to happen to me. No chance. No.
We can't leave the interview, though, without touching on your dance moves.
Yes.
Oh. We've got Strictly Dancing on Ice. Yeah. How did these come about? What made you want to do them?
Oh, well, I was asked, basically. And it's funny. The dance, Strictly, I was asked to do... one of my mates was producing the show, and so he asked me to do that. And I said, no, because I don't dance, right, across the board. Nope. I stand there of a bar and I nod my head holding a drink, right? That's all I do. And then, funny enough, when Gareth asked me, and then I saw Denise Lewis, not long after Gareth asked me, and I said to her, what do you think? Do you think I could do Strictly? And she went, you can't dance. You ain't going to do this. If you ever put a challenge out to an hour, that was it. I was like,
me up.
okay, I will do this, and I will go further than you in that sense. So that was kind of fun to do that. So that kind of got me involved again, a little bit of a competition here. And then Dancing on Ice, the same thing. Jane and Christopher wanted me to get on the show. I was like, oh, I'm not so sure now. You know, these old bones of mine, if they fall, like, you know, could be really awful. You'd be fine. And I really thoroughly enjoyed the whole process. And it was during lockdown, so it means I had a good excuse to get out the house, right? I could do that. So all those things were all fun. And I saw them as fun. I never saw them as anything else. It's just part of entertainment in that sense, and have a good time doing it and learn a new skill. I can now dance. I can now ice skate. Hey, can't complain.
Love that. And anything like that coming up, or is it just the app design at the moment, Colin?
Just the app. Let's do the techie business so I can stay in the dry, right? I don't have to do anything. I've got
to ask you this question because it's Commonwealth Games next year.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, you loved competing for Wales. What's your advice to the team right now? People looking to qualify, that right on that borderline, and how significant is it, putting on the red vest of Wales?
Really important to get the red vest on in Wales. I mean, it's an opportunity that doesn't... I always remind people, more people get MBEs a year than can put on a Welsh vest. You've got to remember that. So you're in a very elite group. And, when you put yourself in that mindset, work hard for it, commit to it, dedicate yourself to it, and just see where you get to. It is always going to be an experience, a life learning experience. You'll make friends there that you'll keep forever. You'll learn lessons about yourself on the build-up towards Commonwealth Games. And if you just miss out on the team, but what you will learn building towards there will be phenomenal. So I would say never give up your hope and your dreams. Just keep working towards it and literally just see what happens. Literally see what happens.
Any other ambition from now on, athletically, outside of the sport? I'm really content. I think cool. I'm really blessed. That's such a nice position to be in.
Said that I am really content because I can still help. I can still do stuff. I can still help people in things that I love. I can still have dreams. I can still have dreams and ambitions and aspirations. I don't, just because you're content, it doesn't mean all those get quashed. I can still do that. But maybe one day run the Cardiff half.
Oh. I think we can make that happen.
I reckon we can make that happen. Yeah.
Maybe
absolutely.
one Monday. Because, again, it's about that challenge, isn't it? It's doing something that you've never done before and you prepare for. Mm-hmm. So I love the thing that I could prepare for it. I'm not looking to run anything stupid. I'm just talking about finishing. And think, so those are the type of things that you want to get into your mind. And I want to do it before I'm way too old, I'll tell you.
I love that.
Watch this space, everybody.
I love that. So, Colin, we asked this question to our guests at the end about one piece of advice that you've been given in your career and one piece of advice then you'd pass on to others.
I think it has to be when Malcolm told me never be complacent.
Yeah.
Never take anything for granted in this sport. It will bite you on the backside, but also it will give you the best time of your life and love. So even when things are going really well, remember life is about borrowed time. So you want to use that time so well. And don't be fearful of achieving. Lots of times people will be afraid to achieve because with achievement comes responsibility. And I think that sometimes is a little bit daunting. So take it on and roll with it. So definitely, but never be complacent.
I love that. So, Mr. Colin Jackson, thank you for being our second guest on Beyond the Track podcast. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
So what is going to be a very busy weekend? It's the Welsh Senior Track and Field Championships, but also incorporating the British Athletics Under-23 Championships and those trials for those European Under-23s. It's going to be a busy weekend in Cardiff, Jen, isn't it?
It's going to be mega. And we've got the likes of Jeremiah Azu competing over the 200 metres, his brother as well. That's going to be a great head-to-head. We've got Joe Breyer down for the 2 and the 400, with his sister Hannah Breyer also in the 400.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see Jez and Joe. They raced last, I think, over 200 metres in the Bucks final in the Cardiff Met colours, where they came first and second. So look out for that. We've got Adele Nicol in the shot put, always a hugely consistent athlete, as well as the likes of Mike Jenkins in the F28 senior men's discus, and then Harrison Walsh, another superb power athlete, going in the discus as well.
And it's not all just happening in Wales this weekend.
Is it not?
It's also in Madrid, in Spain. We've got the 2025 European Team Championships. We've got Abigail Paulet over the 100-metre hurdles, and Evan Blackman in the mixed 4x400 metres. So he's currently looking to get a taste of that mixed relay success.
Great. He'll be looking to bounce back to form. Mannheim Gala in Germany is always a very competitive sprints meeting where the British athletics team take the juniors out there. Sad news for Lewis Stevens. He fell at the Welsh Champs and injured himself, so he won't take part, I don't think, in that 4x100 metres. But Nell Desire does. She's in the 4x100 metres for women. And Jessica Mantle, great to see her also in that 4x100 metres. There's also a busy weekend, isn't it, Jen, for our juniors?
Yes, the YDL is happening in a range of areas this weekend. So it'll be good to have a look at our junior development and see how they all get on.
And more up your street. Any 10Ks going on?
There is the 100 House 10K, formerly known as the Hilly Billy 10K. So I'll be keeping my eyes peeled for the results of those.
Well, look, get down to Cardiff to watch those senior championships Saturday and Sunday. The likes of Justin Davis, so many other talented Welsh athletes that are going to be on show. And wouldn't we love to see them booking their places in that under-23 British athletics team for those championships. But I can't wait.
I'm really looking forward to it too. Oh, James, what a fantastic interview with Colin.
Yeah, what an amazing guy on and off the track. Yeah, an absolute pleasure to talk to him, wasn't it?
So insightful and so inspiring. If you have enjoyed listening to this episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe and share with a friend. We'll be back next week with a brand new guest.